Right, as I had a few people asking about how I paint stuff again, I'm going to try and do more videos because I completely stopped doing them for ages. And yeah, if people want to hear it, they can hear it. So I've got one of the Skaven Endless spells here, which I have Zenithal primed, so you can see the sort of darker underside later on top. But that's how I start off all of my models. Don't like just working from back, and yeah, don't work from just white anymore as well. Just gives you a bit of shadow in there to start with. So starting from that, and then I'm just going to paint this up quickly because mostly what people are interested in is how I paint fast because I don't really paint well. But yeah, so start off just going to do the metals and then I'll come on to the, don't know, warp, fiery, magic-y stuff after. And for metals, I use the Vallejo metal colour. So this is steel. And I've got some on my palette. Beautiful palette. Okay. And I'm just going to slap it all on. So, brush I'm using for this is size 2 this time, but that's kind of the smallest brush I use. This is a super cheap nylon brush because metallics trash your brushes, so just whatever works. And not diluted at all, straight from the pot. And I'm just going to get this all splattered on. I'm trying to avoid putting much of it onto the sparkly bits, just because I then need to repaint those back into other colours, but it is just a case of getting colours down on the model. So you notice with this, I'm absolutely just removing pretty much all the hard work of Zenithal because the paint isn't thinned at all, but with metallics, they don't thin terribly well. So I just want to get the colour down. Where the Zenithal will help us is on the magic-y glowy stuff. And as you can see, I'm not straight over a bit of the magic there, but I'm not too fussed about doing that. It's relatively easy just to pick those back out after. I'm just trying to do this just to get it down. Inside as well. I won't bother going all the way up with this because up at the top of it, it's just going to be dark, so I'm just kind of going around the bottom bit of it where you would still get a bit of light onto it, not worrying about it up in the depth. Okay, so I think that's first metal colour down. So I can now deafen you all by blasting this with a hairdryer, as I would usually do to dry it, or I can just let it dry off. So I will not deafen you, but instead I'm going to be super cheaty and now just go straight to contrast paint warp lightning. Now this is pretty strong, so I'll probably thin it a little bit with the medium. I've not actually tried that on this one before. Last time I used it, I put it on neat and it did kind of overpower the energy glow stuff. So try it a bit thinner now. And what have I got? I have a big ass brush which is a size 6. So again, slap a bunch of that onto the palette there. And just clean this off. I should have put the medium on first. But I don't want to turn my medium bright green. So again, loaded the brush tip and just roughly a 50-50 mix there. Then not bothering to clean my brush off or anything because that's got exactly the paint I want to put on. Slather that all over the top. Yeah, with the thinner in there and with the contrast paint, it all sort of flows to the recesses quite nicely. So, yeah, pulled a bit of a metal paint down there, but make sure there's not too much on my brush. Yeah, that's alright. That's the problem with not having dried off the other one, but you sometimes get that if you're just trying to paint stuff super fast. Basically, get the paint off your brush and just carry on, don't worry about it. Yeah, picked a bit up again there. I don't mind a little bit of the sort of metallic colour where I'm in around the bell, because, well, actually you might get some of that colour showing through, because this is just an energy glow. Yeah, I've missed a bit of the metal on the bell there. Don't know. Yeah, that can just be where the lightning is cracking down the surface, so that's fine. And there. So very quickly, energy glow over the top. Now, can't really do much from here until it's dried out a bit, but, so I will blast it with the hairdryer as soon as I've captured everything. Okay, shove that on the table as that if you really wanted. Doesn't look very good, but you could. Right. Cheapest hairdryer, £7 from a supermarket. Right, dried the worst of it off. You can still see, well, a little bit in some of the deeper pools. That's still wet, but I don't mind too much. What I might just do is strip some of that out where it's gone super deep. Just to let it actually dry off. What you just want to avoid with this is just leaving any sort of tide marks of when you do pull it away. I went in with a wet brush. There you see when I've stripped that one out in the middle there. I don't know how much that shows up on camera. But there is a little empty spot where there was green, and I've managed to lift it all out. But I can just kind of flood that back in. And this one will do the same. And there you go. You end up with a spot in the middle of it. That's what you do not want to do. But I know because this area is quite raised up, I'm going to be going over this with a bunch of other paint anyway. I might just touch it back in there. So that was just neat from the pot, putting the warp lightning glow back in. I've missed the underside of some of this when I've done it. So just in those undersidey recesses, I'm just strengthening up the colour. So because I'd not tried thinning down this warp lightning before doing it, I possibly just went a bit too thin. But something that I've found is quite good with the contrast paints is you can put a bit on the model and then really pull it around. You can sort of get a reasonable, almost building in your transition just by smearing it. So as you can see, this is where I'm just going over the neat, so I've massively strengthened up that green, but it's not taken me any time at all. So yeah, next time I do this, it would be probably about half the amount thinner onto the Warp Lightning Glow, I guess. It's a 2-to-1 glow to thinner rather than 1-to-1. Now I've clocked, and there was a few bits I've missed. Yeah, I've moved down to a size 2 brush for this. It's actually smaller than I normally go for, but that'll do the job nicely. Right, there we go. We've actually got a reasonable definition to the green. The metallic on there is just a flat metal, but because of the way these Vallejo metal colours go down, you actually get a really nice sort of shine and reflection on them just from natural light. So it looks actually pretty decent under this, but that's because I'm working under a daylight lamp here. If I take that away, it will start to look quite flat, so I do want to shade down the metal regardless of that. Really quick and simple for this. I'm just going to use the null gloss. Using the gloss, it really flows into the recesses rather than sort of doing any pooling, and it keeps a much brighter sort of shine than sort of normal null oil. You could also use like a black ink or something like that for this. Again, not doing anything fancy, no thinning it, straight from the pot. I'm just whacking it on so it just sits into all of the recesses. With Skaven metals, I will probably then also bring in some browns and things just to give them that sort of dirty, mucky look. Could go to a brass on this actually, that would be the other option. But I can decide that after I've done this, because to make it a brass or a bronze, you can easily just tint down from a silver metal. There we go, that'll give us a bit more definition on those, and you can see it's slightly flooded into the underside, but I'm fine with that because that's shadow. Again, slightly damp brush just to pull off anything on the top which is built up where I don't want it to. And that's hopefully given our green enough time just to have dried up a little bit. Now what I want is, I've had a paint leak on this, but it's a moot green, which is quite a bright green colour. Don't know if it comes across okay. Yeah, that's about right. So I'll dump some of that on my palette and I'll mix it into what was already on my palette for the leftover of the Warp Lightning, just to darken it down a little bit. Let's see how that goes on. So, not doing dry brushing or anything, just keeping this nice and wet. I'm just putting a really strong, bright top edge to anything that's banging up. That's me just flooding all that on there. But for working quickly, I'm not really worrying about what's wet and what's dry. If I really need to, I'll blast it with a hairdryer to dry it off. But because I'm working across two different areas, not touching each other, I can just leave one to dry whilst I do the other and just move backwards and forwards. Yeah, that's the bell. Ring out. And so see how I'm just, sorry, off screen, just putting it down so that I can work top down just to try and catch any pointy uppy bits. That's just super quick and dirty on this. because the green's still a bit wet, I actually get some wet blends going on as well, which are just to help keep everything evened out. Anything that I think is slightly raised and sticks out, I'm just sitting with this because I'll be going back over it again with. I'll have a look and see how it looks, but a bit of yellow or a bit of white mixed into the moot green just to really bring it up. So that's the, yeah, I've just noticed the massive spike of electricity that missed the green off completely. So I'm not worrying too much going right down to the warp lightning on this because I know it's a top edge raised thing. I'm slightly flooding into the null and oil, but again, because you're talking electricity stuff or warp lightning, actually, if it bleeds off slightly, that's me just getting a effect, a light effect. So I'm just going to cheat and pretend I did it on purpose. Yeah, the magic finger removal tool for when it goes onto the wrong bit of the model. So yeah, I've now hopefully picked out all of the little zaps of lightning going around, and now I think I'll try, this is nice yellow, which I use a lot of my highlight colours. It was when I went on the Siege Studio painting course, they recommended that just for your highlights rather than pure white. So reason being, well, one, white is obviously very, very sort of strong and dominant, but also it's difficult to get a good white paint. They tend to go a bit chalky, so going into a sort of yellow or a grey tends to give you a much smoother paint. And yeah, the Siege Studio, it was just their basic painting course I did. I can't remember what it's actually called, but they do sort of faces, a load of airbrushing, so you paint up a panel off a rhino, blending a power sword. I think it's sort of 40k focus, but you can use it for anything. So, blending out a power sword, and I can't remember what else, just bits and pieces of whatever you sort of want to practice on as well. I found it a really interesting course. It was only painting course I've ever done, so can't compare it to anything else. But yeah, certainly helped me in terms of how I think about and approach things. The approach they take was very much not speed painting, so they did briefly sort of talk about army painting. They are a commissioned studio, but it was about the guy teaching it, who sort of is the founder. Well, the guy that I had was the founder of Siege Studio, who is a proper top end competition painter. So just showing you the sort of level he will go to on some of his pieces and some of those techniques and approaches that he's used. But yeah, really interesting, and particularly if you're into airbrushing, definitely well worth going just to get some pointers if you've got any sort of questions or fears around airbrushing. So the zenithal I'd done on this before I started was all airbrush, but I very seldom use it on EOS models beyond that. Some of the bigger stuff, and that's about it. So I'm just adding ever more sort of touches of the ice white into this, and as you can see, I've got pure ice white on the tip of my brush, and then I'm just blending it down the side just to sort of smooth out. And with these, I'm just trying to catch the sort of top lightning crackles, just to bring them up from the rest of the green. Oh, I've been missing this bit completely. much you can see from this, I'm doing most of this side of the brush. If I'm touching the top, it's just because I'm wanting to put that pure brighter colour on. But all the actual, put a bit too much in there, pull it out with my finger. All the actual painting, because I'm just wanting to catch edges, I'm doing with the side of the brush. Yeah, try and get these sparkles which are going right down across the bell. So because I've caught them with the green, smeared a big chunk onto it. Because I've caught them with the green when I run on the previous pass, when I do the yellow over the top, it really just sort of gives them a bright look to them. They still look green because there's just enough under there, or at least I think there is. So you'll see I'm just constantly turning the model as well. I probably should be slightly more systematic, working from one bit to another, but I just kind of looking back and forwards, making sure everything looks how I want it. So there you go, that's the lightning glow, got a bit more definition and depth to it. Oh, these ones down the bottom need a bit more. The brush is getting slightly too dry now. So where I've been working with it for a while and it's just started to dry into the brush, it then starts to go a bit more like a dry brush, and it actually pulls the paint rather than putting paint down. So just dip my brush back into the water, moisten it up again. You're not wanting to flood it, just get a little bit of moisture on it so that the paint actually flows off the brush rather than sticking. You have to drag it off the way that you do on a, I don't know what to call it, a wet dry brush, wet brush, don't know, whatever that is. Right. So now if I just go top down again, I can then really hit the top edges. Now this is basically some pure lower, so you can see I pulled it down the side of the brush rather than just being on the tip. I've not done it on that side, but what's touching onto the model is just pretty much pure ice yellow now. But the brush, you'll notice I've never cleaned it, so there's still a bit of green in there. It's all just part of being lazy, and you can, depending on how loaded your brush is, you actually get a little bit of a blend out of it as well sometimes if you're doing that, which is all just saving me work and making sure that everything transitions. I wouldn't do that if I was working on something that was like any sort of a clean edge, but I always do it with these energy glow type things. Sorry, I'm off screen again. Just because they are sort of, it should all just be transitions. So what I'm trying to avoid is just putting hard lines down. So that's really bad what I've just done there. So let's clean my brush, flood it to soften it down. There you go, lift most of the paint off. That I just put down. Fill my brush back up. There we go, load it up again, both sides this time because it hasn't got any green in, so I need to be a little bit more careful now. Alright. again, still mostly working off the side of my brush just to give myself that control, and just picking out all of these little raised bolts in a nice yellow. Then I'll add a bit of white to that for a very final sort of few tips. So I've got the P3 white here, what is it, Laurel, but just whatever white will do. And if you look at my palette, I've just been mixing it all in. So I had my ice yellow there, which I'd pulled some of the moot green into, and now I'm just adding white into that. And this I'm really just trying to catch little spot points on. Again. These I've managed to get the white all on one side and not the other, so I just need to turn it and lean it this way so I can catch down a few of those, make it look consistent on both sides. Split down here. You notice on a lot of these I'm not actually drawing the brush down, I will here and then just smooth it down with my finger, but I'm just tapping. So I'm just dropping the paint on just where I want, not making lines of it. Yeah, oh, sorry, got completely off screen there. That gives me the, my camera's falling off, that's why it's gone off screen. And just bring that back, nice crop shot for you. There, so that is roughly the green energy glow done. The bell just has some very basic shading on it. Pull some highlights in by just getting a silver. So, for doing these highlights, I find the metal colour, because they flow so much, actually they're not ideal. So for highlighting I tend to go back just to either the model air or the model game air ranges, just because they're a thicker paint, so they're easier just to place as a highlight. So for a highlight you don't really want it to run everywhere, you just want it to go on where you place it. Now, depending on how happy you are with your brush control, you might want to move to a slightly finer brush for this. I tend not to bother. And again, side of the brush, just so I'm catching raised areas, and just touching it onto the top of each of these runes. Lightning flashes on the top of the face, or Skaven head thing. Anything which is just raised up from the basic part of the bell here, I'm just catching. So I said earlier, if you wanted a brass or bronze or whatever, you can just tint it. So before you do that, you want it to all be dry. But what I would do is, yeah, that's actually a bit of electricity along there that I've missed. But not going to go back and do it because nobody will ever notice it. Because yeah, I'm not going for any sort of top quality with this. It's an endless spell, which I don't even know if anyone actually uses this one. But they don't start on the table, they're kind of a supplemental to your army thing, so I don't bother trying to paint them to the best of my ability. Also, my Skaven army isn't painted spectacularly. Well, none of my armies are painted spectacularly, but you know what I mean. So there we go, that gives just a bit of a glow back into all the raised bits of the bell. Just catch this edge up here because the light would get it. Same on this one. Yeah, that. Calling done. There you go, half an hour to paint a whole endless spell from primer to tabletop, other than a bit of basing material. But so little of the base there, I just stick, I don't have any to hand, but it's the Vallejo grind texture stuff I use, so it just kind of looks like sand, then you can shove a wash over it or dry brush it or whatever. So yeah, fairly happy with that. Thanks very much.